We engage in authentic conversations about our weekly entrepreneurial goals while exploring business, failures, success, and personal growth.
We're going to continue to work and get better at this, so thanks for tuning in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Our vision will highlight a diversity of guests who are creatives, industry leaders, and individuals creating positive change within our communities. Join us on the Our Vision podcast.
Our shared journey to become better humans.
It's not only our vision, but it's your vision too.
FSU. We had the opportunity of going into the second process of having this place rezoned as residential business. So that went to the commissioners, and you were able to find that video online. In our town, especially since I don't know if they were doing that before COVID or not.
The city commission meetings? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
But everything's archived, and you can see it live streamed on YouTube for our city. So
I never knew much about it. I didn't really pay much attention to the meetings until recently, until we got involved a little bit.
And I think from scrolling down, I think it is like since COVID happened, they started doing this, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that again. But so we came across that. So about, would you say about 2 months ago? We went to the
first meeting, the zoning commission
and planning,
meeting.
The zoning and planning, right?
Yep.
And we were able to get speak there, and people were for it and against it, and some people had some, I would say, legitimate concerns about Airbnb being in their neighborhood, and some other people were not as. I don't know. Like one of the things that sticks in my head, because I've utilized Airbnb, especially when I was dating somebody, and we were traveling and everything, and we enjoyed it quite a bit. But so one of the fears that come up is that we're not going to know who's coming into the neighborhood, and I don't know.
We don't know because we haven't done it yet, so I think that'll come with experience.
But I know from traveling is what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, yes.
We've gone and had a great time and haven't torn anything up.
But I think as long as you're vigilant as Airbnb operators or transient rental operators, that you can mitigate those issues.
There are some steps, yeah. So one of the things from reading would be you don't just allow it to be booked. You check the person out and see if they have a profile and see if they have because there's a way of rating people that have stayed, and then they can rate you. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So there's a way to mitigate that. So anyway, so we went through that process, and during that process, we had how many yeses?
Everyone except for one person.
And that was the 7 people that are on that board, 6 of them are citizens, and then there's a liaison, which is a commissioner, and the commissioner voted no on that. So it moved on to the commissioners, and you found the video. Yeah. I didn't even know it was up. So
they live stream, the city live streams all of their commission meetings.
Right. And so we sat and listened to it the one night. I don't know, it was a pretty long meeting.
The first one?
The second one. Well, the
second one just happened recently. Right. So we attended the first one. We also watched it, and Joe actually spoke at the podium to voice his opinion on it and why we're doing this, and to be transparent with the public.
Right.
And the second one we watched, we didn't go to the second one. This is the city commission finalized the voting.
Right, and
approval. So
my opinion of that was I really feel like the commissioners are going to do what they want to do at that point. It's been passed on. They've got the information, and they can either choose to look into it or not. And that's one of the reasons I figure, well, they're going to do what they're going to do. But the reason you want to make sure you're doing everything right is, especially right now, there's a lot of talk that you need to be permitted, and different laws are different depending on what county or state you're in. So you really need to pay attention to that if you're going to do it legally. And I think that's important. For us, it's important to follow whatever the ordinances are for right now. And one of the things for us to be able to do that was that our place had to be residential business. Now we need to take it to another step, and we can talk about that here in a little bit. But so we put the commissioner meeting on, and there are 6 commissioners. And so they go through their whole process of talking about, and we were asking for a rezone of residential business. And they kept going back and forth, and because we were transparent about in the future we may want to do an Airbnb, that became part of the conversation at the commissioners meeting. And so they were going back and forth on transient.
So the meeting we attended was mainly focused on transient rentals. So it was a packed house. A lot of people came from the public to speak their opinions on it. There were a lot of people that were pro and a lot of people that were
that's true, yeah.
Against it.
But and at that meeting, it was pretty back and forth. I mean, people were, I wouldn't say heated, but emotions were a little high.
Yeah. And like we were there to hear everyone because we're not for or against it. We're kind of in the middle because I hear the people that are against it and I understand the people that are for it.
Yeah, and some brought up legitimate concerns.
There were legitimate concerns, but there were a lot of concerns that weren't all that valid, I felt.
And that's where I was going earlier.
Yeah.
So when we were utilizing, and we enjoyed it, right? But some of the ones that I don't think are real valid is that they were talking about all of a sudden they're worried about their kids, And, I know, and I've had kids. My kids are grown. But
pulling the heartstrings.
Yeah, it was
people's emotions.
I don't know if that ever happens.
I understand the concern.
But I don't think that's based on reality. I really don't. I feel like that's just, like you said, pulling at the heartstrings. Let's stay on that because that's, save the kids kind of thing. And that's where they stay at. And I think the majority of people that are traveling that can afford to travel, as long as you're running a solid business, you're going to be okay. We're not in Miami. We're not in South Miami where people are renting whole houses out for that kind of purpose. So they're going to the islands, they're going to Cedar Point and some other attractions in the area because we live along Lake Erie. So I don't think it's the same kind of thing as like going to Las Vegas or going to Miami Beach, So those concerns are a little concerning to me. I don't agree with that. But yeah, there was other ones that brought up good points. Parking's one of them. That can be an overflow and a problem in a neighborhood that has off-street parking and driveway parking, and the combination of both for people. I think that's a legitimate concern. And I think the board has done a good job with starting to implemented that you have to have a parking plan and those kind of things. So I think I think we're doing good as a city trying to navigate through trying to make it fair and trying to come up with regulations and trying to come up with ways of doing it so that it fits well within our city and our tourism and that kind of thing. But go ahead. What were you thinking?
Here's another thing that I hear a lot from people that are against transient rentals is that it's like a free-for-all, but it's not. And Joe went to City Hall and got the list of all the legal transient rentals that are in our city. And there honestly aren't that many because there's the Cove District, which they allow it there. And then you can do it if you're commercial.
Commercial downtown.
But you still have to get the permit.
Right, yep.
And they're looking into other district areas that they would rezone to allow transients.
From an article I was reading all the way back, I want to say 2018, they were looking at this. So 4 years ago, right? 18, 19, 20, 22, 4 years ago. Was that they were trying to do overlay areas. They called it in the article blighted areas so that they can increase property value by having people invest in those properties and fix them up and allowing revenue to come out of those properties. So I thought that was an interesting approach. I don't know how we decided they were blighted. I know the city has a way of grading houses to say whether or not they're different classes, A, B, C, D, or I guess how they do it. And as they move closer to that D, I don't know if it's F, I don't know for certain, but there's, they're become condemned. So, but yeah, I wanted to get back to the other point too. So what did you think of the meeting overall, that first zoning meeting?
So I'm going to take it to what I was kind of continuing from what I was saying with, the way I felt was a lot of people came unprepared, and that was a lot of the, commission board members. Is that what you call them? Commission?
Yeah, they're board membership.
And
zoning planning.
I can't speak for them because I don't know all the things that they have to do because I've never done it. So I don't want to speak for them, but it seemed to me that they had specific things on the agenda and not many people did the research. It seemed like the only ones, I shouldn't say the only ones, but most of the ones that did know were the people that we directly interacted with that were, what are their roles? So they're not part of the commission, but they are the liaisons.
They work in the office, and they're part of the planning process. They bring it then and look at it. And in our case, instead of doing an overlay, they had us do a residential business. And the reason they had us do a residential business, and we talked about this on another podcast, was that our block had commercial behind us and other residential business next to us. So it made sense for us to go that route. So they help. They come up with the plan. They do the research. Does this make sense? They're for it. They bring in the information to the board. The board then knows that they've done their work, and they say, this is why we're recommending this.
So there was a lot of like bouncing back and forth on like, well, you know, if they can do it on their block, they weren't looking into the details of our block that more than half of it is already commercial.
Residential business. Yep.
So it made sense on this block. Now the block across the street is mostly single or two-family residential.
Yep.
So it didn't make sense. And if that was our case on this block, we wouldn't even push for it.
No. And we openly said that during the meeting. You and I were on the same page about that. When I went in, I was a soundbox for both of our thinking on this. I did say that. So it was interesting. I was shocked that we got 6 yeses and 1 no, right? And so from that, what I learned was that 6 of the citizens of Sandusky, Ohio said, we listened to it, even though some, I think you're right, some were more prepared, some weren't as prepared. But after they listened to it, they all voted yes, except for one guy, and he's the commissioner, and he's a liaison, right? And so he votes no. And I thought that was interesting. So then it moved on, like we said last week, and the commission then met, and there's 6 commissioners, and 4 voted yes, and 2 voted no. And out of the 2, one held to his guns, the liaison, he still voted no. And another gentleman that sits on there, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but he did come unprepared, without a doubt. He had no clue what was going on, and he praised the office for coming up with this, and they believe in their opinion and zoning and all that. But he said, I need more information, and they wanted to table it. They did not table it. They voted that night. And the president voted with us in favor. So, and some other people on the board or the commission. So, which is good for us, right, Brad? So we're at the next level. 30 days from now, it'll be switched over to residential business. And the next thing we'll have to do with this property to be able to move forward is come up with a parking plan. And we measured out there this week and I was able to call the office. I don't know which office that was, but I finally narrowed it down, and I got the schematic of putting a concrete apron in for the driveway. And we went out and measured it together. I think it was a minimum of 10 feet wide, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So, yeah, the big issue was transient rentals at these meetings, even though that's not what we were there for. We were just transparent about what we were looking to do in the future, but it wasn't guaranteed that we would still be able to do it. We have to go through, like you were saying, and put a driveway in that'll fit 3 vehicles in order to get a permit for transient rentals.
Right.
But that kept coming up. Yep. That was like the focus when we were just looking to get it rezoned residential business because it made sense, and we operate businesses out of this property anyway.
Right. And we said that at the first meeting, right, Brad?
I kept flipping back to, it's going to be a transient rental. It's going to be a transient rental. The reason we're doing this is because it's going to help propel us. It doesn't mean that we want to do all of our properties as transient rentals. We understand that we need living spaces for the residents of Sandusky as well.
Right.
So,
but they would not let up on it. They always flip back. The discussion did not stay in the realm of what we were there for.
It was a negative perspective due to transient rentals being the focus.
And quite frankly, listening to the meeting, I felt while we were listening to the commission meeting that there was people that voted yes that were against it. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know if you felt the same way while you were listening to those guys. There was at least three of the guys that voted yes. You're like, I don't know if they're going to vote yes. It sounds like they might be against it. At least, I would say 2.
You're talking about the meeting we went to.
No, I'm saying the one we listened to, the new one. So when I was listening, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to get this.
Yeah, some of it's hard to tell, like which way they're going to sway.
Right. So,
but those individuals that do, usually they're really thinking about it. And I think that's why we kind of get that feeling, because they don't want to say yes and they don't want to say no. They want to understand it and make sure that it makes sense and it's going to work.
I didn't feel the same way as you do on that. But I
don't know who you're speaking about. So
there was two commissioners on there specifically that when they speak about it, it sounds like a no based on their language and their vocabulary. And I think if you were to isolate that, anybody listening to it would think that was a no, or most people would. But then they vote yes. I'd
have to go back and listen to it.
So if you feel that way, that's cool. But I feel differently on that after listening to it twice now. Or I think I listened to it 3 times.
But I know what you're saying, that yes, when some of the individuals speak, it's hard to tell. Like, yeah, you do get that vibe.
Yeah. So, but what's important to you and I from talking is that we do everything legal. That's it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work and there's a reason we can't do it, okay, no big deal.
We go to the original plan.
That's right. Move on. That's like not a big deal to us. Like, it's important to take the steps. That's whatever your city has to offer. We're trying to operate within what our city has set the guidelines, and we did that. I did not like that they said there was one person on their commission that said we used it as a workaround. I don't agree with them.
No, I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that at all.
No.
And based on my conversation that night at the first meeting, that is not how I presented what we were doing. It's not a workaround. And I don't feel like the liaison made it a workaround. I feel like it was appropriate with what we were willing to do. And she did at the second meeting say it was part of the conversation. And I appreciate that, because she was trying to be polite about it, saying, yes, it's not the whole, yes, this is one avenue, but this is not, it's part of a bigger conversation.
Like we're trying to be sneaky to have a transient rental. We were transparent about everything we were planning to do. Right. And it's just an avenue to that. It is a part of that, but it's not like we're trying to almost as if we're trying to like be sneaky.
Yeah, and I don't like to be publicly portrayed like that.
No.
And I will have another conversation with the commissioner to openly disagree with him on that. Because I think that's unfair based on the context of how we presented ourselves, or I presented us at the meeting. So not pissed off, but just, it's definitely something I wouldn't want to do to somebody else. And maybe it was done by accident. I don't know. It's when you're sitting in front of people, you say things and maybe they didn't mean it like that. So maybe that's why it warrants more conversation. But so anyways, quite a process. We learned quite a bit over this last 2 months about those two bodies, commissions, the zoning and planning, what you need to do to move forward to have an Airbnb. We had to do a lot of reading, and we're pulling plans and permits and trying to figure out how that's all going to work, and coming up with a parking plan and starting to understand how much work that's going to be. So yeah, I enjoyed the process though. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, it was a good learning experience. I thought to experience that, to sit in on a meeting, to watch the live streams, because like I said, I've never done that. So it was a big eye opener.
I'm glad we did the process, and I definitely was able to learn some things, and it made me more aware of what was going on with other things in the city. So when you start to read other documents that are going on, and different variants that are going through, and different things ordinances that they've passed, you start to understand some of the different projects that are going on with other business owners. So that was kind of cool too. So it pushed us into paying attention a little bit more of what's going on in the surrounding area, how they're allocating money for different projects and things like that. So we came across the grant recently from a friend.
The lead
grant, which is interesting. So I started applying for that. I got to reach back out this week and start that. But a friend of ours was able to find a lead grant for their family home and was able to get $22,000 worth of work done in their home. They're replacing some windows and doors. So this is all kind of coming out of this whole thing. And I think they discussed this on one of the meetings recently, the lead grant. So they were able to get $5.4 million for your county. So I think that's also beneficial to people if you have a home that was built, I want to say before 1970s, there's a good chance that your house could have lead in it. And so there's this grant. They'll come out, they'll poke around, see where the lead is, and they'll help you out, come up with a plan with a contractor that's certified to fix that up and make it safer for your family.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool too. So we're learning staying plugged in and talking to people and learning some shit. So.
All right. That's all we have today.
Yeah.
We will see you guys Thursday.
Thursday.
So, that's one thing I wanted to say is we were doing Mondays and Wednesdays. It's going to be, we've been doing like once or twice a week lately, so it could be either, but we're going to have weekly episodes. I changed the days to Mondays and Thursdays. So, but just expect at least one episode per week. But we're going to stick to 2. But there may be some weeks where we do 1. So, anyways. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Anything else?
I would just say make sure you subscribe, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and we're going to keep moving forward, keep learning, and thanks for listening.
Boom. All right. Peace.